Yo, what's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining in. Today, I'm going to talk about some of the books I've been reading so far this year. And if you enjoy these type of videos where I just talk about in general what I've been reading, what I'm going to read next, and a general synopsis on what I thought of the book, let me know down below because it would benefit me and you. Because I can make videos like that in the future. Because on the channel, I've been mainly focused on single book reviews, solely dedicated for that single video, and live streams, of course. And also lists. So if you enjoy kind of like an update on how things are going, I'll be more than happy to do that. So this is kind of like my mid-year update because it's about halfway through the year already in 2024. And for this year, my goal is 55 books. I'm at 30 at the moment. So I'm going to quickly speed through 30 books that I've read so far. And I'm also going to do a King the Hill system. So that's a little bit different. So I'm going to have 3 books on the hill. And as I make my way through the list, if a book I really enjoyed, it might kick a book off of the hill, right, in terms of being the king. So I'm going to have 3 books up here. I mean, not physically because I can't hold them there the entire time. But you'll get the idea, okay? So first off, what did I read at the very beginning of the year? The very first book that I finished, I don't have physically on me, but it was Sledge versus the Labyrinth by Nick Horvath. And wow, this book was a brutal, fast-paced thriller. And it wasn't, fantasy or sci-fi, but it was a nice break from those genres because sometimes when you're reading dragon after dragon, spaceship after spaceship, you want a little bit of a break. And this was a great break from those genres, and I really enjoyed it. So far, Sledge versus the Labyrinth is the only book. It is right here now at the top of the hill because it's the only book I've talked about so far. Next up is going to be Jurassic Park, which I have right here. This is not the actual edition of Jurassic Park. This is Jurassic World, which includes the sequel as well, which I have not read. Jurassic Park, I have a full video review on this one, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought it was just so interesting how much it differed from the movie itself. And I just am becoming more and more of a fan of Michael Crichton with, of course, Jurassic Park and another book I'm going to talk about later on in this list. So Jurassic Park, that's going to be, I think, taking place over Sledge versus the Labyrinth. But Sledge versus Labyrinth is still up there because we're looking at the top 3. Okay, so that's at the top right now, Jurassic Park. Okay, next up is going to be Ascendant by Michael R. Miller, which I have right here. Here it is. So this is a fantastic book that felt kind of YA-ish, but still has some dark elements as well. It's a classic Dragon Rider epic fantasy tale. And I also met with Michael R. Miller on the channel, so you can check out that interview later on. But this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's going to sit in the spot number 3 on the hill. So I'm going to put it right here so I can make a mental notes, or right here, I can see it. I know the spots. I don't have Sledge versus the Labyrinth physically on me, but we'll make our way through it, okay? Next up is going to be The Rest to the Gods. I always get tripped up on this title because it's a little bit hard to say sometimes. I always want to say To the Rest of the Gods, but it's just The Rest to the Gods by Josh Walker, who is a hashtag The Break-Ins author. And this was a really fun ride. His debut novel, right here, actually novella. The first book in the series is going to come out here very soon. And I can tell you that from what I've read in the novella, I am super excited to see book number 1. This was a really fun read. The magic system is so interesting. The main character is really cool. You get to see her past and present at the same time within different chapters. So it was a lot of fun. It's going to not break the hill just yet, not get into the hill, but it was a lot of fun to read. Next up is going to be the Spiderwood Chronicles, the field guide. I don't have that one on me, but I mainly did that for a video, which I thought was a lot of fun because it was a little bit, nostalgic, going back to a series that I read as a kid, and it was a lot of fun. I actually was surprised at some of the adult themes in that kid's book. I mean, it was super short though. I finished it within like less than an hour and a half of reading because you know what? It's a kid's book, full of illustrations, and it was still fun though, okay? Next up, that's not going to go on my hill. It's not going to be the king. It's just going to be, on the wayside. Next up is going to be The Dryad's Crown. This was a very, very fun read that I read earlier this year, and I actually listened to the audiobook version of it, and the narrator did a fantastic job. I really like this book. I wish I also read it in person as well, because there are some really good illustrations in the book as well that are very beautiful, that also paint a good picture of the tone to expect in this book, because it's a epic fantasy feel, but it's also noble bright, to where it feels kind of whimsical and cozy at the same time. Even though there are antagonists, there are evil people, it just had an overall kind of warm and cozy feel. And this is actually going to take place in Knockout Sledge versus the Labyrinth on the Hill. So far on the Hill, Jurassic Park, right here, Ascendant, and then the Dryad's Crown. That's our hill so far. Next up is going to be Gold, Lock, and Key by E.J. Doble. E.J. Doble is one of my favorite authors of all time now with his Blood and Steel saga. Really, really enjoyed that. Gold, Lock, and Key was really interesting because it was a different take on a classic childhood fairy tale, being Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Picture that kids' fairy tale told in a grim, dark setting. You have a crazy adventure ahead of you. I highly recommend it. It's like less than 100 pages, really quick novella, and you get a good taste of E.J. Doble's prose, which is fantastic. It's not going to take the place on the hill just yet, because it's just not going to right now. But the next book is going to be another novella by Scott Palmer called The Sound of Starfall, which is a prequel novella to his series called The Last Ballad series. And this was actually a beta read of mine, and I was blown away with this read. It was one of my favorite novellas I've ever read. So, real quick, impending doom is coming upon this setting and these people. You follow two characters, both hilarious. The dialogue is awesome, and super vivid imagery as well. And I just freaking loved it. So that's actually going to take the place and knock out the Dryad's Crown, and actually go ahead of Ascendant in spot number 2. For me, right now, right underneath Jurassic Park. I don't have it physically on me, which is unfortunate, but that I can remedy maybe in the future. All right. Next up, it's going to be Die Rock 88 by S.A. Ernster, which is a sci-fi debut here by this author, and I can always not say this series name. The Cosmonauty series. Book number 1. I had a blast. I love this cover. I talked about this series a couple of times, or this book a couple of times, because of the epic looking cover, and the story does live up to the cover as well. It was a lot of fun. A lot of things I loved out of it. Crazy creatures in there, crazy action scenes as well, and I highly recommend it for you to go check out if you like sci-fi, if you like Red Rising as well. I think you will enjoy this one. It's actually going to take place of Ascendant, knocking Ascendant out of the ring right now in spot number 3. So what do we have? Jurassic Park, The Sound of Starfall, and Die Rock 88 are the king, top 3 and the king of the hill right now. Okay. Next up is going to be Whistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. This was just so much fun. One of my favorite reads of the year so far. It's basically if Goku was in space. It's a superhero space opera that's just full of witty dialogue that made me laugh in so many occasions, with complex characters as well, with this amazing main character being Rohan, where you just want to know more and more about him, and you find out more. But I love this book. This is actually going to take the number 1 spot for me right now, kicking out, what was the book? Die Rock 88 is now being kicked out of the hill. I am so sorry. So we have Whistful Ascending, Jurassic Park, and A Sound of Starfall. Next up is going to be Theft of Fire by Devin Erickson. This one came out of nowhere for me in terms of being a super fun, fast-paced, first-person POV sci-fi epic as well. And what's cool about this is that it's very intimate in terms of it being a limited cast of characters. You follow 3, which is basically right here. With our main character being Marcus, it is a first-person POV, so you follow the story from his eyes, and I really enjoyed it. There's alien technology in here, there's AI, there's a lot of things that you will enjoy if you like sci-fi. I highly recommend it, and I am actually... No, it's not going to kick anyone out of place, but I really enjoyed it, okay? Theft of Fire. Next up is going to be Johnny Mnemonic. I don't have that book like as itself because it is a short story. It's going to be in this collection, Burning Chrome by William Gibson, who wrote Neuromancer. So I wanted to check out a short story by him. And I think Johnny Mnemonic, sometimes it's kind of hard to say, is not that long in terms of a short story. Yeah, that's how big it is. It's like 20 pages. Yeah, around 20-ish pages, which is crazy that there was a whole movie adapted from 20 pages. It was wild, it was crazy, it was weird, and it was cyberpunk, which I enjoy. It's not going to kick anyone out of the ring just yet, so I'm going to put it down here for now. Good book, though. Next up, it's going to be, here we go, Before They Are Hanged, book number 2 in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. You might have seen my First Law video where I covered the Blade itself, where I was talking about how I was struggling a little bit getting into that book. This one definitely changed it for me. I really enjoyed the dynamics of the characters in this one, and it felt like there was more of a plot in this one where our characters were actually, they had a goal that they had in mind and where they were going. And the relationships that were built in this journey was just so much fun to read through. And some of them were actually like super comical and made me bust out laughing multiple times. So, Before They're Hanged, right? What's book number 3 again? The Sound of Starfall. I think it's going to take its place in spot number 3. Okay, now what do we have? Whistful Ascending, Jurassic Park, and then Before They Are Hanged. So far in my top 3 this year. Okay, next up is going to be in this collection. It's going to be Sphere by Michael Crichton. This is a collection of 3 books. I only read Sphere so far out of this collection, and Sphere was so much fun. It was a story about a group of scientists going underneath the water to survey a possible alien spacecraft. What they find in there is something that's pretty interesting and unique, and also the story goes a completely different direction than I thought it was, and it was so much fun. The movie did not do it justice, unfortunately, but Sphere was a great read, and I am super excited to continue with more Michael Crichton books. It's not going to take place on my top 3 on the King of the Hill just yet, with the next book being Renia by Carl Forshaw. I love this cover, this like really cool purple ambiance to it, and looks kind of crazy. It looks like there's some crazy explosion happening here in the background. This book was very interesting. I actually did it on a buddy read in my Discord, which you can join us whenever you want to. It's the SFF Insiders Discord. I have my own little section there that you can talk with me whenever you want if you want to. But we read through this book. Everyone was loving it. I really enjoyed it as well. There were some really fun characters in here. There's also some very traumatic scenes, which was very sad to read. But, sometimes when you get through trauma, you come out stronger, which is what happened for our main character, Renia. This is going to be like book number 1 out of, I think, 7 or 9. It's a long series, with this being book number 1. And thank you again, Carl, for sending me this book, because it is stunning. It's not going to take the place on the King or on the Hill, but I really enjoyed it. Next up, I don't have physically on me, it's going to be Impact Winter Season 2, which is kind of weird to talk about books in a season, because this is an audio-only type of story, which is offered by Audible, and it's a full cast of characters, and also has like songs in it, and music, and sound effects too. So it was kind of like watching a TV show with no screen. So you're picturing all in your head. You're just like reading a book, but you have a full cast of characters and sound effects. And I enjoyed Season 1. It's still weird to say books as a season. Season 2 was enjoyable, but there was a lot of things that were predictable, and some of the cast members sounded almost identical, so it was hard to separate them out. So especially when they were talking in the same room or the same conversation, I'm almost like, all right, who's saying what? Because I could not tell who it was, because they sounded the same. But I am going to be listening to Season 3 here pretty soon, because it is out. I like vampires, I like action, and it's pretty enjoyable. And if you're an Audible member, you can get it for free, so I might check that out later. Next up, so that's not going to take place of my top 3 on the Hill. Next up is going to be Summer Night by Jim Butcher, which is book number 4 in the Dresden Files. I liked it. I did not love it as much as the previous 3 entries. I actually liked the more urban feel to this series, where this one got more into the less urban side of things when you went into the Fae world and kind of stayed in there for a good chunk of the book. And I wasn't really feeling that one too much, but I was still liking the story. I still love Harry Dresden as a character, so after I finished that one, I still said I want to continue with the series. So that is not taking the place of these 3 on the hill. Next up is going to be A Memory of Song by Scott Palmer. I was just saying earlier that his prequel novella was my favorite novellas of all time. This story was as if Drew Abercrombie and John Gwynne got together and they had a baby. This would be the book right here, the result of that relationship. Loved it. There are so many fun characters in it, tons of fun action scenes. Basically, you have Logan Ninefingers in here as a character, and also Orca from the Bloodsworn trilogy. I really enjoyed it. It's not going to top any of these 3 just yet, so these 3 are holding out pretty strong, but really enjoyed it. Scott Palmer, be on the lookout for his series because they are all the rave right now, so go check it out. Next up, I'm going to put these 2 together. It's going to be the Stone and Sky series by Z.S. Diamanti. And I actually listened to both of these on Audible, and the narrator did an absolute amazing job performing this series. The characters all sounded unique. They all also sounded really like warm and cozy. And then you get to these crazy kind of scary scenes where he spooks you out with these sound effects sometimes, and it's kind of scary, but I really enjoyed this. If you like just a classic fantasy feel, an epic fantasy that's also kind of warm and cozy, it almost kind of feels noble bright, go check these out. These are being highly reviewed right now, and I also really enjoyed them. It's not going to take the place, though, on the top of the hill. With the next book being 36 Streets by T.R. Napper. I don't have that physically on me, but it's actually arriving today from Amazon, which is kind of funny. I don't have it right now. This is a book in the cyberpunk genre. I actually just interviewed T.R. Napper a couple days ago, so you can check that out. This book actually won 2 awards over in Australia. It actually won Best Novel, I think, in 2022. But I'm a huge fan of the cyberpunk genre, so naturally I wanted to read more books in this genre, and I'm really glad I did because this one was crazy wild. There's a simulation in here called Fat Victory, where it's basically a simulation of the U.S. versus Vietnam War, and that alone could be its own like a short story. And once you read through it, you feel like you're in the dredges, you're in the trenches with these guys, and you come out traumatized after that. So also, outside of that, of course, there's going to be a lot of technology, a lot of fun ideas that T.R. Napper explores in a cyberpunk, really action-packed story. That's also a murder mystery as well. So go check that out. I really enjoyed it. It's not going to take the place of these 3 just yet. Next up, it's going to be Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. This is my very first S.A. Barnes read. This was totally a cover buy because it gave off vibes of Dead Space, my favorite game of all time. And I'm a huge fan of space horror, and this gave off those vibes big time. And I read through this. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought it could be more, though, especially from the horror aspect of it. There were a few scenes that were kind of spooky or ominous, but I just wanted more out of it. It was still worth a read, especially from a psychological effect with one of our main characters. That's what their job is supposed to be, is looking at the mind and seeing how people react. And I'm looking forward to more books by S.A. Barnes. But this one, I just wanted more horror. That was it. It's not going to take the place of any on the hill just yet. And as a recap, Whistful Ascending is number 1, and then Jurassic Park is number 2, and then Before They're Hanged is number 3 so far. With the next book being Disquiet Gods by Christopher Racchio, book number 6 in the Sun Eater series. And this is just more classic Sun Eater goodness. It's one of my favorite series ongoing at this point. And naturally, I was super excited to check out this book once it came out. I read it, I actually listened to it as soon as it was available on audio. It was actually my very first Sun Eater audio listen. I think the narrator's name was like Samuel Rukin. He did a fantastic job. So I definitely recommend you checking out the series on audio if that's your route and you don't like reading them physically. Good book. I really enjoyed it. We get a lot of answers in this book from a lot of questions that we had, built up over time in the series, and revelations, answers, more questions, right? And the stakes are raised, especially for our main character, Adrian Marlowe. So I think this is actually going to take place before they are hanged in spot number 3 today. Joy Abercrombie is knocked out. That's so sad. Next up is going to be Childhood's Inn by Arthur C. Clarke. This is a book I'm still digesting in my mind because I did not know what was going to happen in the story. It always threw me for a loop every single part of the series or part of the book. All right, and it first started out kind of like District 9, where we have a bunch of spaceships kind of just coming to Earth and just sitting there, not really doing anything. And then some weird stuff happens. I don't know what to make of it just yet. I'm a big fan of Rendezvous with Rama, so I wanted to check out Childhood's Inn. I'm still digesting it. It's not going to take the place of Any on the Hill right now. Okay? Next up is going to be Death Mask, which is the book 5 in the Dresden Files. And this is back into what I love about the Dresden Files being an urban fantasy field. We got our main character, Harry Dresden, that's almost immediately brought into like 2 or 3 different things that he needs to tackle throughout the read. I love how Jim Butcher basically gives him no rest at all. There's always something going on with this guy. He can never freaking sleep. It's like he goes to go to bed, and then someone knocks at the door, someone calls, and they need him right away. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to continue within that series. I thought it was a step in the right direction from the previous entry, and I can't wait to get into it more, but it's not going to take any place in the top 3 right here. Next up is going to be a reread of the Licanius trilogy. I read the first one again, The Shadow of What Was Lost. Really enjoy this series. I had a feeling in my brain for the past 4 months where I just wanted to read this series for whatever reason. Like in my brain, I kept saying Talcamar, Davian. Why? I don't know. But I re-listened to this one, and again, it's more juicy, epic fantasy goodness, and I'm excited to continue rereading the series with book number 2, somewhere over there. But it's not going to take the place of these 3. All right, Mushroom Blues is the next book right here by Adrian M. Gibson. This is a debut novel by this author, another The Break-Ins author. And initially, I thought this was going to be a cyberpunk book. It's not, but that's not a bad thing. This is more or less a murder mystery, a police procedural book that kind of made me feel like I was in the 90s with the technology that was in this series. But we have a race of people that are part mushroom, and I really, really enjoyed how Adrian explored this idea of mushrooms and how they connect to each other in the whole fungal net, and also how humans interact with the mushroom people as well. It's just not a good look on the humans when they don't treat the mushroom people very nicely, but in this story, it was a lot of fun. There are so many interesting ideas that Adrian explored. I read through this one really quick because it was just so much fun to read through. And I highly recommend it. It's not going to take the place of this top 3, but I really, really enjoyed it. Mushroom Blues, everybody. Next up is going to be Upgrade. I don't have the one physically on me. This is by Blake Crouch. I love Blake Crouch's books so far. Dark Matter, Recursion. So good. I wanted to reread Upgrade because it's been a couple of years, and I enjoyed it. It's not my top 1 out of the 3. It was still a lot of fun, really fun ideas. It just wasn't, emotionally wasn't the same level as the previous 2. So I enjoyed Upgrade. The reread was fun as well. Next up is going to be Pathligher by Rob Lee. This was a crazy action-packed tale. One of my favorite sequences in this book was on the open water, and some crazy monster comes out, and it was just so much fun to read through. I love books that go on an adventure on open water. I don't know why. But it had that in this story, and I really enjoyed it, which is kind of funny because when you look at this, you just see fire. But my favorite part in this book was in water, right? But this is like X-Men, right, where there's a ton of people that have certain powers because they are chosen. And the powers are different as well, which I thought was kind of cool. But this one's just packed full of action, really good lore in here as well. It's not going to take the place of any of these 3 I have at the moment. And guess what? There's only one more book left that I completed, being book number 30. I just finished this one today, literally. The Night of the Moon by Gregory Contaxis. Hopefully I'm saying your last name right. This one was a novella. It was about 100 pages long. And it gave me serious First Law vibes, but really condensed. It was super condensed. It felt like we made giant leaps really quickly. The writing was really good. I enjoyed it. The story was fun. It could have done more for me though, which I'm excited to see that we have 2 more books already out by this author in the same series. So we can see how it improves with a bigger page count as well. And there we have it. 30 books I just talked about. Who are the books that are on the top of the hill? Disquiet Gods in the Sundered series, Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, and Whistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. So far this year, I've had some fantastic reads. It's going great. I really have not had anything I had a DNF just yet. I do have some books I'm currently reading. Goodreads is saying I'm currently reading 8 books right now. And I have a reason why. Because you might be thinking, 8 books at one time? You're crazy, you're nuts, you're lying. I'm not lying, and I'll tell you why. Because right now, I am listening to 2, being A Court of Thorns and Roses. I wanted to read this, or listen to it, because I wanted to see what all the hype was about. Right, this book has over like 2 million ratings on Goodreads. Why? So, I'm going to find out why. I'm going to go through the book. And I'm like a quarter into it so far. And it's not bad. I'm actually kind of enjoying it right now. So that's one that I'm listening to. The other one that I'm reading is A Knife of Sorrows, which is book 2.5 in E.J. Doble's Blood and Steel saga. And I'm having a blast in this one so far. I'm 50% into it. And I am getting my way through it very quickly because his prose is just so much fun to read through. And it's always action-packed. And I'm having a blast. So that's The Knife of Sorrows. The other one that I'm actually reading right now, very slowly at the moment, is The Da Vinci Code, right, which is a thriller by Dan Brown. I just started it, as you can see. And the reason why I'm reading this one, because it's really highly regarded as a thriller. And as you guys might know, I am actually writing my own thriller, a cyberpunk thriller. And I wanted to learn from one of the best. So I'm reading through the Da Vinci Code. I've actually never seen the movie either. So I'm really intrigued to see how this read goes for me and in my brain. The next one that I'm actually listening to right now is The Last Argument of Kings, book number 3 in the First Law trilogy, which is going great so far. I think I am like a quarter into it so far, but it's been fun. I freaking love Glocta. And Logan Ninefingers is always hilarious. And it's going good so far. It's just more classic First Law. Apparently there's going to be a crazy duel in here that I've heard many times is amazing. So we're going to see about that, okay? The next one that I'm still currently reading is The Trials of Empire in Richard Swann's Empire of the Wolf series. This is book number 3, the end of the trilogy. And I made my way through, how many pages? About 80 pages, and I stopped for whatever reason, and I don't know why I stopped, so I need to continue with this. I might restart because I love this series, so I'm going to keep reading that one. The next one that I'm still currently in progress in is Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard by Caden Love, and this is another The Break-Ins author. What's really cool about this particular copy is that it's book number 1 out of 100, which is pretty cool. And when I was reading through this, I got through about 50%. And I stopped for whatever reason. I think I had a deadline for something else, maybe. I'm not sure. So I need to get back into this because I was reading it. It's super politically driven. There was a couple scenes that made my jaw drop. I was like, because it was unexpected. I did not expect a certain thing to happen. But the premise behind this is super wild. So I need to continue with this absolutely, which I will. Okay. The next one that I'm still reading through is The Lord of the Rings, book number 1 in that series, being The Fellowship of the Ring. And this is the illustrated edition. and I am on page 124 so far. And to be honest with you, I am kind of struggling with this read. It's not what I expected, because when you come into this after watching the movie, I felt like it would be more cinematic or more tense, and it's not tense at all just yet. But maybe it will change later on. I've heard from others that you need to kind of go through this when you're in a chill mood, because it's just not going to be the same as the movie. And I also heard that the audio version of this, narrated by, I think, Andy Serkis, is fantastic. So maybe I should go check that out. But yeah, that's how I'm getting through so far. I just got to the chapter, by the way. In the House of Tom Bombadil. So I don't even know who that is. So I'm reading through that right now. And the last book that I'm currently reading through, which maybe I should take this off of Goodreads, is Howling Dark, book number 2 in the Sun Year series. So last year I was going through a reread of the Sun Year series to get prepared for Disquiet Gods, but I did not make it, as you can tell, because Howling Dark is book number 2. And I got through, I think, 40% of it, and I got to my favorite scene in that book, which was meeting one of the characters in a throne, which I will not say more on that. But that was one of my favorite scenes, and I really enjoyed that section. So those are the books that I'm currently reading right now. In terms of my TBR, what I'm going to read next, it's really hard to predict that. I'm really bad at TBRs. Like, I am lucky to predict the next month. I'm a huge mood reader. Probably for my TBR, honestly, I need to get back to these books I'm still in process of reading in here. All right. So after Da Vinci Code, after Fragmented Vineyard, after Trials of Empire, I'm looking at Soul Cage by L.R. Schulz, which looks fantastic, and The Running Man by Stephen King. And also I'm looking at Tomorrow, and A Dirge for Cassius by Callum Lott. There's just so many books I want to read, man. But what do you think I should read next? Let me know down below. And I think that's really about what I have for you today. If you want me to do more videos where I talk about, because I went through 30 books here, maybe I should do this more often. Let me know. And thank you so much for joining in. I hope you have a good one. Keep reading, and peace.